Well, the Chiefs' first preseason game against the Jags came and went, and while there are still some things the team needs to work on, tackling on kickoffs for starters, there were still plenty of positive takeaways, including some guys that really stood out. So let's talk about those standouts as well as those who may not have played the best, look at some unfortunate injuries. That does include an update on Hollywood Brown and more. But first, how about those? All right, on the very first play of this preseason game, the three receivers out there with the starters for the Chiefs were Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Hollywood Brown, a trio that I would love to see out there as much as humanly possible. Anyway, as Mahomes received the snap and stepped back, it looked like Kelsey might have been the primary option on this play, but that was blown up, so Mahomes, under pressure and stepping backwards, sidearm slinged it instead to Hollywood Brown for the first down. A great pass and catch there from who I perceive to be wide receiver 1 this season from a production standpoint. The problem is, after Hollywood was tackled, he went to the sideline, and you could see from this clip here, he was in noticeable pain while over on the sideline. And a replay shows a bang-bang play that his shoulder, though, was driven a bit into the ground as the DB in coverage landed on him. And it turns out that Hollywood suffered a dislocation of his sternoclavicular shoulder joint. So it was here near his sternum. Not great. In fact, Dr. Jesse Morse of Injury Experts can't recall anyone suffering this injury since Tyreek Hill in 2019, so while it's not great, it's also extremely rare.
This is an SC sprain, we call it sternoclavicular sprain. This is a very rare and serious injury. This is where the blood vessels enter the heart. So if that bone pops behind the sternum, it can compress. I'm not super worried about re-injury, but overall, an unfortunate injury in the first week of preseason.
The crazy part about that to me is the last player to suffer this injury, at least off the top of Jesse Morse's head, is a Chiefs player like 5 years ago, also against the same exact opponent in the Jags. That's some wild stuff. Anyway, the question everyone is asking is, how long will Hollywood be out? Well, Tyreek Hill missed 4 games. 35 days is how long he was out, to be exact. And this injury can reportedly take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to return. So even if Hollywood was able to return as quickly as Tyreek, he's going to at least miss the Week 1 matchup against the Ravens and may even miss Week 2 against the Bengals as well as Week 3 versus the Falcons. So that's the bad news, but I guess also maybe good news out of all this. Let me explain. The bad news is Hollywood will most likely miss a couple of crucial games against some playoff contenders, who I perceive to be playoff contenders, in both the Ravens and the Bengals if Joe Burrow can stay healthy. So that's a definite blow to the offense, but the good news is Hollywood should return pretty quickly and play most of the season. Had he broke his clavicle, he would have been out 8+ weeks, so KC dodged a bit of a bullet there. Now, Hollywood tweeted out after the game around 11 p.m. that God makes no mistakes with a prayer emoji and a clock emoji, maybe meaning it's only a matter of time. Then earlier today, Adam Schefter reported that Hollywood was discharged from the hospital because, yes, he was transported to the hospital after the injury due to where the dislocation occurred and has been cleared to return to Kansas City. So it looks like he didn't need surgery or anything major there, and hopefully he heals up quickly. Then, around 5 p.m. this evening, Adam Schefter actually said that Hollywood Brown is indeed back in KC after spending the night at a Jacksonville area hospital and got discharged this morning. Still wild, though, that this happened on the very first play of the first preseason game. Hollywood has had some trouble staying healthy in his NFL career, and I hope that trend ends for him after he heals up from this one. Anyway, with Hollywood Brown out of the game, it's worth noting that Sky Moore was the next guy in with the starting offense, and that shows me that at least right now he's still pretty high up on KC's pecking order in the wide receiver room. Now, I don't believe Justin Watson played. He had no snaps on the snap count list from all the players that I saw, and Kadarius Toney was also held out from this game, so I would assume that had Justin Watson played, he would have been the next guy in, but who really knows? Sky's stock is either still really high for the Chiefs or they could be possibly having him in there to shop him from a trade, but who really knows at this point in time. From there, with the starters out there, though, Mahomes connected with Pacheco on the right side, and even though he bobbled it, he was able to reel it in and creep up the field for 8 yards. Then on the very next play, Pop had an incredible run up the middle for 16 yards, thanks to some nice blocking from the O-line. Then after a short pass to Kelsey for a quick 7, the offense eventually sputtered with Pacheco having no room to run. On second down, then Mahomes' pass to Rice on third down was a bit low, with pressure forcing Mahomes to sidearm sling it off of his back leg. I don't think it got tipped, but at first glance, I thought it did because it was pretty low. But even though Mahomes appeared to want to go for it on 4th and 2, Andy Reid was like, hell nah, bro, this is preseason, and Butker booted a 45-yard field goal. And that, my friends, was all she wrote for many of the starters on the offensive side of the ball. Andy Reid said they'd play the first quarter, but once again played just one series. I'd also like to say that after watching every snap from the rookie left tackle Kingsley Suamataia, he looked pretty good out there for his first go in an NFL game. I'm happy to see that because we need him to catch on quickly as the blind side protector of QB1. It was also nice to see the rookie wideout Xavier Worthy out there running around, and while he was never targeted, I liked what I saw from a couple of his routes out there. And while I'm not going to break this game down series by series because it's preseason, and I would rather focus on some standout players from here on out, players whose stock rose as well as maybe fell a bit, I do need to talk about the very next play after Harrison Butker's 45-yard field goal because the Chiefs special teams unit on kickoffs did not have a great day overall out there. This return by Washington went for 74 yards after the entire Chiefs organization forgot how to tackle. Washington is a good returner, don't get me wrong, but this was just an embarrassing show from the Chiefs on special teams. This did not make things easy on the starting defense either, as they were backed all the way up to their own 20-yard line. Leo Chanel couldn't get there in time on this bootleg that helped move the chains to 1st and goal at the 7. Drew Tranquill is him, though, tackling Etienne for a loss. However, Etienne got the better of Drew Tranquill on the very next play for the score, cutting inside on his angle route out of the backfield, causing Tranquill to bite for the outside move, and Lawrence connected nicely there for the score. It's also worth noting that the first-team defense had Joshua Williams coming out opposite Trent McDuffie with Chamari Connor and B. Cook at safety. However, Nazeeh Johnson, Kelvin Joseph, as well as Jalen Watson all did not play last night. So it'll be worth watching to see how things look if any of these guys are able to return for the next preseason game. I got to keep an eye on the cornerback 2 spot. We need to see who is going to rise to the occasion. Joshua Williams looks good out there at times, and then at other times gives up a big play, like this one here to Brian Thomas Jr. for 41 yards. And this is the inconsistency from Joshua Williams that the coaches want to see less of as time goes on. He did have a great run stop on this play here later in the game, showing great awareness as he stopped Johnson for what would have been more than a 6-yard run. Another cornerback, Nick Jones, made some plays and struggled at times as well. He had a nice PBU here against Parker Washington with Jones all over him to prevent a touchdown. Then Nick Jones also gave up a big play, allowing a 35-yard touchdown from Beathard to Duvernay, with Duvernay making a nice adjustment on the ball for the score, and Nick Jones couldn't recover to force an incompletion. Next up, I got to shout out the sponsor of today's video, HBTC Coffee, a wonderful medium roast from Benchwarmer Brew with origins of Mexico and Ethiopia. So this is a great way to support the channel and get some great tasting coffee. Link is in the description down below. Next up, Carson Wentz had a nice 21-yard completion to Noah Gray in the middle of the field, with CEH being the next running back out there in the backfield after Pacheco. The second-team offense struggled out there, though, early on because Jacksonville still had their first-team defense out there. They bullied KC in the trenches, and Wentz couldn't get much going. So, while Wentz wasn't electric out there or anything, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on the day because in spite of that, he still went 4 for 4 on the evening. He did have one play, though, where he probably should have just dove on the ball after Caliendo snapped a rainbow right over his head. Instead, he tried to scoop it up, but couldn't and lost even more yards. More on the Chiefs offense and some standouts here in a bit, but the Chiefs' first-team defense had one more go against Jacksonville's starters on the next drive. Lawrence had a nice connect to Gabe Davis here with Leo Chanel diving to swipe at the ball, but just missed it. The run defense held strong on this 2nd and 5, and after Gabe Davis couldn't reel in this pass on 3rd and 5, he stepped out of bounds with Keith Taylor in coverage. The incompletion forced a 4th and 5 that the Jags ended up going for. Well, Jack Cochran, the guy filling in for Bolton at the middle linebacker spot, would not be denied as the Chiefs sent him on a blitz right up the middle. Cochran was patient, then found his opportunity to penetrate the line and get home to Lawrence. A great play by him there. Deneric Prince was then the next running back after CEH in the pecking order to see a handoff on the next drive, even catching a pass on the very next play. Neither of them really went for anything, but they are giving Prince some looks out there to see if he has what it takes to be running back 3 on the roster. Meanwhile, Jared Wiley fumbled this short pass on 3rd down, not able to maintain possession through contact, and that forced the second of 4 Matt Araiza punts on the night. And honestly, Araiza had an okay evening on those punts. He averaged just 40 yards a punt, but it's his first game out there for KC and should hopefully only get better from there. His second punt was fine, though, kicking it to the 10-yard line. I will give Araiza a compliment, though, and that is this. Harrison Butker went 3 for 3 on the evening, 2 field goals, and an extra point, and that means, at least so far, Araiza is meshing well with Harrison as the placeholder. All right, next up, Chris Oladokun was the next quarterback in for KC, completing a nice 3rd and 8 to Irv Smith Jr. to move the chains on his first drive here, and I will say, Chris seems much more the part this season compared to last. He had a decent night, all things considered, looking elusive per usual with his legs, but also a bit more confident and decisive in his throws. He went 7 for 10 on the night for 85 yards, was sacked just 1 time, and had the highest quarterback rating of any KC QB on the evening. He also helped KC score their only touchdown on the night, which was also helped on this drive by a bit of a surprising player. Basically, Deneric Prince went to the sideline with the fullback running back hybrid Carson Steele trotting out in his place, and on his very first handoff out of the gun, Steele not only made 2 Jags defenders miss, but also bounced off a couple more like a pinball, powering his way up the left sideline for 20 yards. Nico Remigio and Cornell Powell got involved after this, and Steele ended up seeing a couple more carries on this drive, actually a few more, 4 in total. He charged through the D-line here on 2nd and 1 to convert for a first, then on the very next play, he broke yet another tackle that would have stopped him for roughly no gain and ended up picking up 6. However, Deneric Prince ended up coming back in, catching a great pass here on an angle route out of the backfield, very similar to Etienne's touchdown reception at the beginning of the game. That was on 3rd and 5, a very clutch catch for Prince, so stock up there, at least catching passes out of the backfield, with Chris O dotting it to him to set up 1st and goal. KC inched their way forward with a Deneric Prince run to the 2, followed by a Remigio catch that wasn't quite a touchdown due to the throw being a bit off, and on 4th and goal, Carson Steele was called upon again, and he did not disappoint. He took the handoff out of the gun, plowing his way through for the score, and Carson Steele looked freaking awesome out there. That was the only drive he saw any action, but I really believe that was all you really needed to see as a coaching staff from this man. Not only did Steele lead the room in rushing yards, carrying 4 times for 29 yards, but he averaged 7.3 yards per carry as well as 7.25 yards after contact per attempt. If anyone's stock went up from last night's game, it's definitely Carson Steele's. I actually added him to my latest 53-man roster projection that I dropped on Friday, opting for the Chiefs having 4 running backs and Irv Smith Jr. not making the roster to make room for the extra running back or fullback. However, he ends up looking on the depth chart. Another guy fighting for his spot on the roster is one I did not have making the 53 on my Friday projection, but he is a guy I had right on the bubble and a guy that could earn his spot once again with a good preseason. That guy is wide receiver Justin Ross. He had this incredible catch in the 3rd quarter, high pointing a 50-50 ball near the left sideline and showing incredible awareness to make sure he tapped both feet inbounds before going out. It was Ross's only catch of the night, although this would have been another solid catch from him immediately after if there wasn't a penalty called. This was a great play by Chris O to flee from the pocket and buy some time, and a nice part on Justin Ross as well to get open on the scramble drill. So again, even though that play never counted, that's another positive rep in my eyes from Justin Ross. He certainly made the most of his limited opportunities, and I'm ever so curious to see how the wide receiver room looks on cutdown day, especially with Hollywood Brown injured. I don't think he goes to IR because he should return before week 4, so the Chiefs either still roll with 6 receivers while knowing Hollywood won't dress out, and the other 5 are really going to have to pick up the slack, or maybe they throw a 7th receiver on the initial 53, and if they do roll with 7, I do like Ross's chances of making it. Another receiver that I do think makes it, a guy that I thought was going to make it anyway, is Mecole Hardman. I think his importance to the team rose a bit with Hollywood's injury, and even though he didn't see any real action in the receiving game last night, he was involved in a controversial play on special teams when he kneeled down in the end zone, but grabbed the ball that was on the 1-yard line on this kickoff. Basically, the ball landed in the end zone, then bounced out to the 1, and Mecole attempted to kneel it out for a touchback, and the officials ended up reviewing the play and ruling it a safety. Long story short, the officials got the call wrong, from what I understand, even after that long-ass review. Andy Reid, as well as the officials after the game, said it should have been a touchback. Once the ball touches the end zone with the new kickoff rules, it's a dead ball. Hopefully the refs get it figured out before the start of the regular season, because my goodness. And with that, Harrison Butker then had to kick off, and the Jags were extremely close to housing this return. Bigsby got the ball up to midfield and simply lost his footing, making a cut inside. And had he kept his balance, that's going to the house, because there's no way Harrison Butker really tries to make that tackle in a preseason game. So yeah, Dave Toub hopefully lost some sleep last night and definitely has to get his special teams unit to tighten up a bit after this game, because it was looking a bit rough out there, to say the least. Next up is yet another receiver fighting to make the roster who had a couple of rough moments himself, was wide receiver Nico Remigio. He muffed this punt here, but thankfully it bounced out of bounds inside the 10-yard line with no opportunity for the Jags to recover, presenting itself. Then on this play here, Oladokin found a wide open Remigio who jumped up for the ball, falling to the ground. Then as he jumped up to attempt to do a bit more after the catch, he got the ball ripped out of his hands for a Jags scoop and score. That was pretty ugly to see. However, after review, the ref somehow said he was down by contact, which negated that 52-yard score for Jacksonville. Nico's knee did touch the ground here before the ball was ripped out, so maybe that's where they ruled him down. I'm not really sure the refs got that one right, but oh well. Another play that was pretty wild was this catch by Cornell Powell. He caught a pass, I think on a crossing route, and as he turned upfield, he got hit by a defensive back. I mean, so freaking hard. He crashed into Powell, and that made the ball shoot up into the air, but somehow it landed back on top of Powell as he was lying there on the ground. I mean, how does that even happen? Is this the catch of the year? Probably not, but by sheer luck, it could have been arguably the catch of the preseason. Now, the return of the day for the Chiefs went to wide receiver Montrell Washington. He had a solid return here up the 39-yard line, showing a nice ability to get upfield. He also had 2 catches for 14 yards, with his most impressive catch being a play that we've seen Mahomes complete to Tyreek Hill, among others, in the past on short yardage situations. This is a 4th and 1, and it went for 11 yards as Ian Book found him to convert for the first. Book looked okay out there, but definitely ran more than ideal, attempting to scramble on multiple plays rather than trying to throw. A player on the defensive side of the ball that I had my eyes on is the Chiefs' former first-round pick entering year 2, with that being defensive end Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He had his ups and his downs, but played 36 snaps and I believe was pretty gassed by the end of the game. He missed a tackle early on, then just before halftime, I believe he missed his assignment when he dropped into coverage on this play with the defense blitzing, and that allowed a nice solid pickup. Nick Jones, I guess, could have missed the wrong assignment here, but I would imagine FAU is supposed to be on a running back rather than Duvernay. But that remains to be seen. He then was unable to make a play here to stop the run on this first play of the second half. The run game was definitely more of a weakness for FAU, with more of his strength being shown on passing downs when he wasn't the guy dropping into coverage. Here's a good example of FAU showing strength on this 3rd and 5 in the first quarter. He was actually double-teamed, but still nearly got to Bethard. I think it's Bethard. Somebody said Beathard, which is hilarious. Then on this 3rd and 19, FAU stunted inside and got pressure on Mac Jones along with Malik Herring. This was against 3rd and 4th stringers, sure, but still, another positive rep there for FAU. Now, one player many have their eyes on is the former rugby star, the Welshman, Louis Rees-Zammit. He had a couple of carries for a yard total and then also had a reception for a few yards. They didn't add up to much, but it was still fun to see him out there getting some opportunities with his receiving play, showing some nice vision to make a man miss. He also kicked off one time in the 4th quarter, showing that he could be used as an alternate kicker to Harrison Butker. Another running back and Keontae Ingram didn't get worked in until the 4th quarter, carrying the ball 4 times for 12 yards, but this one in particular went for 10 yards, and that was a pretty good rep for him overall. I also want to let you guys know real quick that I have new shirts, a whole new merch company, better customer service, faster shipping, better quality, and it includes these Dad Bod season shirts and much more. So the link to those are also in the description down below. From here, here's some more quick hitter standout plays made by players for the Chiefs. Safety Deon Bush had an awesome tackle in the 3rd quarter on 2nd and 10, flying down from the secondary to blow up running back Jalen Jackson. Safety Jaden Hicks had an incredible ankle-wrapped tackle on 3rd and 10 in the 2nd quarter, as well as an awesome stop on special teams, allowing absolutely nothing to happen on this return. He had a total of 4 tackles, including a tackle for loss, and maybe the standout out of everyone on the defensive side of the ball. So, similar to Carson Steele, I think Jaden Hicks' stock, in my opinion, rose the most last night. Then another rookie I was curious about was tight end Jared Wiley. He had a fumble early on that KC was able to recover, but also made a nice leaping grab for the ball here on this play. It was only 3 yards, but it was a nice grab nonetheless. Overall, it was a quiet night for Wiley though, catching just 2 passes for 5 yards despite playing more snaps than any other tight end, 24 total snaps. Then defensive end Malik Herring had a huge tackle on this play here, nearly forcing a fumble, but the runner was ruled down by contact. Defensive tackle Matt Dickerson batted down a key pass on 3rd down to force a 4th. Then safety Chris Roland Wallace had a nice tackle on a run to the right, then lit the QB up on a blitz shortly after. Linebacker Cole Christensen also had an awesome blitz, slingshotting through the line untouched and sacking Mac Jones. Yes, Mac Jones, formerly of the Patriots. He's now with the Jags, and that was a big loss. All in all, it was an eventful day that had Carson Steele and Jaden Hicks being the clear standouts, Justin Ross arguably having the best catch of the day near that sideline, unless you want to make the case for Cornell Powell's. The cornerback 2 spot is still no more clear to me as far as who it's going to be than it was before this game, and the Chiefs kickoff unit on teams needs to really button things up. Then I do have some bad news to end this video on, and that is the offensive lineman McKade Mettauer is feared to have torn his ACL. So sadly, Hollywood Brown was not the only Chiefs player injured in this game. I'm not going to show the play because it looked pretty painful, but McKade was involved in a bit of a freak incident where he got crashed into from the side by Breeland Speaks, yes, the former Chief who's now a Jag, as this man was diving to tackle a scrambling Ian Book, and McKade was making a routine block at the left guard spot. So he's likely done for the season, which is definitely a bummer for a UDFA that signed with the Chiefs immediately following the draft. So prayers up for both McKade and Hollywood, and you guys got to let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments down below. Who are the biggest standouts to you? And with Hollywood hurt, what are your current thoughts on the wide receiver room and how the Chiefs should handle that? Let me know in the comments down below, and until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?